right, and we're back for part three, and I'm going to further evaluate on a few of the topics I talked about in the previous videos, and then we're going to talk about some other topics as well. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, as far as the formation quality goes, I further want to touch upon that. First off, there's two things, like what makes a formation superior for one person to another or from person to person is going to depend upon things like how many guys do you want on the field of a certain position, or the team that you use, or how fast you can get a blitz set up, or how fast the blitz is that you get set up, or how consistent it is. Like, a lot of those things are going to depend upon how good or bad quality a formation is to you. So to each person, how good a formation is going to be different, especially if you guys know different things. Like, if one person knows a blitz that the other person doesn't know, that one blitz might make that formation gold. Whereas if that person doesn't know that formation, other than that blitz, there's not many blitz setups in that formation. So, that formation might suck to everybody else. So that's one thing where if you're going to be unique, you can make any formation good as long as you find the golden Krabby Patty within that formation. You're going to be good to go. Now, one thing you'll see is that formations become very popular, or blitz setups become very popular, because they're, one, either easy to do, or two, very easy to adapt to every formation in the game. It's not as common on Gen 4, but like that blitz angle I got here on Gen 4, you're going to see that in a lot of people's setups and a lot of people's concepts, just because that's the blitz angle. So when you're setting up schemes, or whenever you're setting up a blitz, there's going to be things that align with other things that other people do and other formations and stuff like that. It's just going to happen this way the game is. I mean, Gen 3, you pretty much just overload. Everybody overloaded to get that easy pressure. Or even if you weren't overloading, you had one of the outside blitz angles like OLB Fireman, where you'll get the DN freeze, stuff like that. So a lot of those types of things just kind of aligned, and it just didn't matter. If you went to the under, it's the same thing. You just do it with a different play. You go to the over plus, you do the same thing. You go to the 4-6, it's the same thing. So every formation is just the same concepts applied to different formations. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes, and a lot of the times, you're going to have to do that. It's just the way the games are designed. Certain things are going to get in, certain things are not. And if there's 5 things that get in the game, and there's 5 things that cause the lineman to go slow, most likely, and you probably should be doing one of those 5 things, if that's the base ways to get in. Now, there are always exceptions to the rules. There always are different formations or different plays that cause some freaky things to happen. But generally speaking, as far as just setting up a blitz out of like a cover 3, setting that blitz up is probably going to be the same in one formation as it is in the next. Now, it will be different for like a 1 down or a 3 down lineman set versus a 4, but most 4 down lineman sets is going to be the same concept. Most 3 down lineman sets is going to be the same concept. So always just keep that in mind. You're going to see probably your concept, or you're probably going to have to adapt someone else's concept or something like that and apply it. But either way, everything is pretty much at the end of the day going to be just a little bit similar in some aspects. Now, the setups may be completely different, but most of the time, the concepts to getting pressure are going to be the same, and it's going to revolve around less than 10. Like, there's usually never more than 10 blitzing concepts in a Madden year, usually not even that many, but just to be on the very outside of it, especially for the guys that use different formations, 10 is usually it. Like, there's not many, and there's a lot more than 10 players, and there's a lot more than 10 defensive schemes. But as far as the concepts go, most of the blitzes, most of the heat is pretty much going to revolve around just a few ideas. It's going to be either an overload, it's going to be a blitz angle that everyone has in common, it's going to be a spot on the field that you move a dude that everybody is going to have in common. But a lot of times it's going to be something that everyone has in common. Is just those general concepts and ideas. Now, another thing that will make a formation or a play or a couple plays very popular is, their ease of use and things like that. So for this year, for example, on Gen 3, the nickel strong became popular and very, very popular. Something dreaming that we're using last year, but the reason that the nickel strong and some of the other formations like nickel wide and nickel normal, the sugar blitzes basically became so popular is because, one, the personnel is solid. You got 3 defensive corners and you got 2 linebackers. I mean, that can pretty much cover anything from a 5 wide to a formation where you're going to have 2 or 3 wide receivers. So it can do that, as well as it's easy setup. The main thing that made this formation and these plays so popular is the ease of the setup. Literally was, the nickel strong was literally one step. Like, just shift the linebackers right against certain formations and you're going to get pressure. Now, there were a lot of adjustments and a lot of different ways you can run it after the fact, but the whole base, the base of the setup was just shift your linebackers right. Base line was a part of it, but certain people preferred the base line, some people didn't. But generally speaking, depending on the defensive formation you were going up against, all you had to do was shift the linebackers. So you're talking about one step, and you have your blitz set up already. And then after that, it's just really adjustments, like what adjustments you're going to make. So if you're telling a player, I can just shift my linebackers, that's going to literally take a fraction of a second. And now I have 6.5 seconds to work with to set up the rest of my defense. Like, there's so much you can do in 6.5 seconds. It's like ridiculous. So that's what kind of made that formation very popular and something that a lot of people use. Likewise, you can make good max coverage D out of it. But the whole idea there is everybody was building around the same concept of just getting that linebacker in that spot and letting him do what he does and just kind of mess up the defense. Likewise, you can move this guy down and blitz him, and you're going to be able to get in pressure that way. So just very, very, very easy setups for all the basically the sugar blitzes, and very similar concepts. Is just either you're going to get that guy on the outside, or you're going to move this linebacker to the outside, or you're going to move that slot corner down here. And it's all similar to the 4-3 stack as well. I mean, it pretty much looks like the 4-3 stack, with the exception of you have a corner over here that you may have to move down a little bit. And this linebacker here is right on the line, as opposed to being, or he's right behind that defensive end's hip, as opposed to a different spot. But pretty much the whole general idea is pretty much the same across. And that's what made that formation and, concept so popular on Gen 3, is just such an easy setup. So when you're making your schemes, the easier the setup or the easier the concept is, the more likely you're going to have success with it, and the better it's probably going to end up being for you. Because if you can take a play like a Fire Zone 3, this is set up on Gen 3. I used to run on, I think, last year's Madden. I don't know if it still works, but it was just base the line, show blitz, and spread the line, like something like that. I had other steps behind it, but that was basically the whole concept, was just base the line and show blitz. And this guy would go here. We would kind of have an overload on the right side. So these types of concepts have just been working for the past few years. Now, again, it's a little different on Gen 3 now, or Gen 4. The setups are a lot different. But as far as just those simple ideas go, the ideas have pretty much been the same. And it's going to continue here moving forward on Gen 4. Now, the ideas will change from year to year usually. Now, from Madden 12 to Madden 13, there really wasn't a change. I mean, from Madden 13 to Madden 25, all the same setups pretty much worked the exact same. So if the wheel's not broke, you don't really want to just keep messing with it and tweaking it if it's already working. So that's why you've seen a lot of the same blitzes, a lot of the same ideas, and a lot of the same concepts, because the same blitzes, the offensive line react the exact same way. So the same blitzes work, the same stuff worked. And that's why you've seen a lot of the same setups and things like that as you did in the previous year. Now, again, for Gen 4, that's going to be different, but just letting you guys know, I mean, once everybody figures out the ideas on Gen 4, it's going to be pretty much the same stuff. Again, it's a lot of the setups you're going to see are going to have that blitz angle I showed you on part 1 in common, in one way or another, one form or another. Regardless of the formation, you're going to find that blitz angle or some idea of a linebacker blitzing from left to right. Another concept you're going to see is blitzing from the defensive back spot, from the slot corners, because the slot corner blitzes work well. That's not something that was usually done in past years. But with that being said, the slot corner blitzes and things like that, and there are some other concepts as well. But as far as simplicity goes, those two are going to be concepts you're going to see pretty much throughout from a lot of people's setups and things like that. But today's video, now that we've talked about all that, another thing I want to add to before we actually just get into building your schemes and things is practice mode versus actual game mode. and a few other factors when you're getting a blitz and putting it together. So first off, there's a few things like a checklist you got to make sure that your stuff works against. Like, does your blitz work against under center? Does it work against pistol? Does it work against shotgun? And, just kind of make a checklist of those three. Make sure, does your blitz work when there's a linebacker or a running back in the half, or a running back or a fullback in the backfield? What if there's a tight end on the left? What if there's a tight end on the right? Will it affect your blitz at all? Because, the tight end usually can affect the blitz, especially if he's on a different route that kind of bumps your defender that's rushing in. So a lot of the times he can actually kind of just jack up your blitz just a little bit by maybe bumping a defensive end or something like that and just kind of throwing his timing off, and it'll mess up the whole blitz. So does it work against those three types of formations? Does it work against the tight end on the left, tight end on the right? Then the next thing you want to test, does it work against non-play action plays? Does it work against play action plays? Because in this game, even if they send the guys out, play action blocks differently than most regular plays that are non-play action. Then you also got to make sure of, does it work in the actual game versus practice mode? And that is one of the most crucial things. Can't tell you how many times you'll find gold in practice mode where you'll just get this guy Edwards. He'll just scream through the A gap, and it just works like a charm every single time with the same setup. And it doesn't matter what you do in practice mode. But as soon as you go to a regular game, you try it out, it does not work at all. So that's why you'll see some guys like practicing in actual game mode. Either way is fine, but just make sure that in play now it works. And then once you've tested it out in play now, make sure it works, against a buddy of yours that you're labbing against or something like that. Another factor you want to take into account is if they're moved with the QB. Because one thing you'll say is if you're in practice mode and you just send the QB, he just drops back and he'll do his drop back and he'll get sacked. One thing you want to do is set up your blitz, and instead of just dropping back, maybe stop your drop back and see what happens. Now, right there, obviously we got sacked. But the whole idea here is just because the blitz angles change, or things change depending upon where the QB is. So if the QB drops back and he drops back here, a blitz from the outside is going to work perfect. Whereas if he just dropped back right there and just kind of stopped the drop back, it's going to change the angles a little bit. And always the angles are so crucial for any blitz or any blitz getting in. So that's one thing you also want to test out. Another thing is slide protection. Does your blitz work against slide left, slide right, pinched, aggressive, whatever? I mean, not many people use aggressive. But pretty much if you're bringing an A-gap, test it against a pinch, test it against aggressive, right, left. If you're bringing B-gap or edge, definitely test it against pinch and test it against the block towards that side. Typically, if you bring a right side blitz, let's just say here from the right, and they slide right, if they slide left, the left isn't going to pick it up. But if they slide right, it may or may not pick it up. So that's one thing you want to check as well. So, kind of make your checklist. If you have to rewind and talk, you can hear all the things I mentioned from practice mode to game mode, all that various things. But sort of make a checklist, and that's one thing you always want to do. And just because it doesn't work against one of the things doesn't mean it's not a good blitz. For instance, if some blitzes, like the ever popular 4-3 over plus A-gap blitz that everyone was running last year and a little bit on Gen 3, it was great against under center, but it was terrible against shotgun. Doesn't make it a bad blitz, just means it's a blitz you want to run versus under center. Likewise, there are blitzes that are good in shotgun and are very consistent, but they suck against under center. And I'll give you an example of that here, but just make sure the checklist, how does it hold up against the checklist? Does it work against all these various things? All the things that it works against, does it help to pass commit? Does pass committing mess it up? Does moving a guy mess it up? Does moving a guy fix a blitz? All those different types of things, man. There's so many variables to every blitz and every play. There's 11 guys that you could have in multiple different positions. So, yeah, I think I'm going to stop it there because it's going to get too long. So we're going to break it into another part here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully this was very informative for you. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And again, man, y'all take care. Hopefully this is helping you out with your defense and building a scheme. Definitely more to come very soon here, so be looking forward to that. And until the next time, we gone.